Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our very first PODSCast of the year this year. It's January the 17th, 2024 at 10 a.m. Central, and we are here with our very good friend, Leigha Gooding from PHMSA. So today we're going to be talking about a lot of extremely pertinent information, a bunch of new things that are going to be applicable to you and your operational duties for NPMS that are going to be applicable this year and beyond. So with that, we're going to get right into it with a quick safety moment. For those of you that are in Houston like me, you are hopefully have already done quite a bit to prevent frozen pipes. If you're in the DC area like Leigha is, I think it's been like 3 years since you guys have had snow, and of course now you have it.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so this
Back.
is pertinent for everybody all over the country to make sure that you are sealing your cracks and your holes properly, that you're using heating tape, that you try to keep the heat in your home to a minimum of 55 degrees. And thank goodness for natural gas because we're able to heat our homes and make sure that we don't have to, well, like the freeze a couple of years ago, we relied on our decorative natural gas fireplace to keep the house warm. So thank you, natural gas. So, and then of course, if you can, disconnect all your outside hoses as well. So please be safe while you're getting ready and or hopefully have already gotten ready for this freeze that we're going through all over the country. A couple of housekeeping items. You're going to have on your control panel a couple of different ways to interact on our podcast. As always, you can enter in some questions into the chat box. You can enter in some questions into the questions panel as well. Last time we had Leigha on, we had so many questions, we didn't get a chance to get to everything. So what she was kind enough to do is take all of those questions, take them offline, do a write-up, and answer all of those, and we got those back out to everybody. So please put your questions in there. If we don't get a chance to get to those during the podcast, we for sure will follow up on that. So we're going to go through some introductions. We're going to talk about the current and new, what has changed and what has not changed in the NPMS submission requirements and the resources available. We're going to be talking about the new information collection changes and that phased approach that they're going through. Leigha is going to touch on how 2024 is phase 0 and what all changes are going to be going on there, and then some other updates and submission tips. So as with all of our podcasts, also we're going to be doing some polling questions, and then we also have some handouts on your control panel. So in the handouts, you have an updated version of the submittal instructions, as well as a PDF link of all of the links of all of the different resources that Leigha is going to walk us through today. So with that, I'm going to go to a little bit about PODS. Thanks so much again for all of you joining. We have both PODS members and future PODS members. There's only 2 categories, PODS members and future PODS members that are joining us today. And we're super excited that last year we got to celebrate our 25th anniversary of PODS, and that over 200 pipeline operators all over the world in 38 countries are using the PODS data model. We're very happy to have a very collaborative and community-based organization here. We do offer quite a bit around technical support and training and some education and awareness as well around data modeling specific to pipelines. And that's because the PODS data model was started 25 years ago by pipeline operators for pipeline operators. And so we're a community of a lot of thought leaders putting some really great stuff together. And before we close up today, I'm going to go through a few of the most recent models and modules that have been released recently, and then 2 brand new modules that we're going to be releasing next month. So with that, a little bit about the data model and the benefits themselves. Of course, it's an open Esri compatible platform, that it's focused on linear referencing your data set. Of course, we have a lot of data that needs to be captured, organized, and governed in these long linear assets. And the data model standardizes and modernizes your data. So one of the best things that operators speak about around making sure that, of course, being in the PODS data model is very helpful to ensure that you're in compliance and that you have your data organized well for your NPMS submittal, but also, it helps you with your risk management. And as most significant incidents have shown, asset knowledge is paramount to safe operations. So it's one thing to get in the rule and stay in the rule and remain in compliance, and then the added benefit and bonus of this data management standard is that it can help you with your risk assessments and your day-to-day operations of operating your pipeline safely. So like I said, we're a great community of people. I'm a little bit partial to us, right? And that, we are focused on pipeline safety and asset knowledge management. And one of our PODS members is actually PHMSA. So PODS is proud to recognize that PHMSA uses the PODS data model as a baseline for organizing the data in the NPMS system, which is what we're going to be covering today. So before we introduce Leigha and she jumps into all of her great content, we want to learn a little bit more about you so that we can make sure that we're touching on all of the different roles and functions. Of course, PODS is a very much inclusive organization. We have a lot of different roles and responsibilities of people that are a part of PODS. Of course, a lot of them are GIS and IT professionals, but we have a ton of integrity managers and engineering and people in operations as well. So if you don't mind, jump into the quick poll that just popped up onto your screen and let us know what your role is. If you're having trouble with the quick poll, usually if you put it into your primary monitor, it's a lot easier for you to answer the question in that quick poll. So let's see if everybody can do that. Yep, we're about 70% of you that have answered, and I think this is going to be a very easy one to predict, Leigha. I think we're going to probably have the majority of GIS professionals, but let's go ahead and check it out. We're at 85% voted, so I'll close that poll and share the results with all of you. Yep, half of you are GIS professionals, 33% integrity management. So we know a lot of people have a lot of different roles and wear a lot of hats, especially in our smaller operator members. Our PODS members are going to be a multitude of different, have a multitude of different jobs, right? You only get one paycheck, but of course a lot of us have more than one job. So we're going to do another polling question while we have you ready and available for that. Our next question, we want to learn a little bit more about what version of PODS you have currently deployed. We've seen a lot of our members gearing up towards a move PODS 7, and we have a lot of our members also that have used some older versions of PODS, but we've seen that the majority of them have either moving to 7, they're either moving away from 4 or 6. So we wanted to see where you guys are in your current state of PODS, and upgrading PODS is to the newer versions of PODS 7. It's really great because it works very well with UPDM, so you don't have to do one or the other. You can have a mosaic of both. So with that, 70% of you have voted now, so we'll close that poll and share the results with you guys. And yep, just as we suspected, the majority of you, 37%, are on PODS 4 relational, which was a major release, whereas the majority of people that are moving to 7 are moving from 4. So with that, we want to make sure you all know that we have put up 4 and 6 back up onto the member portal. A lot of you were looking for some historical information about 4, and there's Lucky. Hey, Lucky. He's just gonna take a nap. This is pretty boring for Lucky. Yeah. A lot of you were asking some questions about 4 and 7, so that you can get that good information to move over. I'm sorry, 4 and 6 to move over to 7. So we put 4 and 6 back up on the Mentor portal if you need that. Last one, I promise. Leah was curious about this one. So if you can, let us know. She's got some great information today about LNG plants and breakout tanks. Oh shoot, you know what I did? I only did one of the following. I should have done multiples. Oops, sorry about that. So if you have LNG plants or breakout tanks, please let us know on the quick poll here, and we're going to get you some good information on what has changed and what's not changed for your submittal for this year. So gas, liquids, gas gathering, LNG, and breakout tanks are your options here. And let's see, we have 70% of you that have voted now, so we'll close that poll and share the results. There we go, Leah, you were right, 46% gas, but we have some LNG and some breakout tanks in here too, so that's great. We'll be able to get to that information that you have there for us. So I'm going to stop talking because I talk too much, which everybody knows if you know me, and B, we're here for all of the great stuff that Leah has to share with us today. So with that, Leah, if you don't mind, I'm going to kick it over to you, ask you to introduce yourself for the 1 or 2 people that don't know who you are, and give us a little bit more information about what you do at NPMS.
Sure, no problem. I'm Leigha Gooding. For those of you who haven't met me, I have been working with the NPMS for over 15 years now. Done a lot of work processing the submissions, gathering your submissions. You may have talked to me 15 years ago about something missing from your submission. So I've been around for a while. I did join PHMSA in 2011. Today, I am the GIS Program Manager here at PHMSA for all of our GIS initiatives, in which the largest, of course, is the National Pipeline Mapping System. And the National Pipeline Mapping System, of course, not just being the data that we collect from all of you, but the applications that we've developed to go ahead and then share that information with all of our stakeholders, with the public, with the firefighters, with the emergency responders, with all the other government agencies. The data you provide to us is so critical to pipeline safety and human safety and environmental protection. So we thank you for that. Monique, I do want to ask, I'm still seeing a title slide from my view. I just want to make sure that everybody is seeing the changing slides before I move forward.
No, I bet I paused it. I did. Oh my goodness. Okay, well you missed, here's what you missed, guys. You didn't miss anything except some great pictures of me and Leah. There you go.
That's it.
Oh, Leah, we have a special guest that just joined before you jump in, and this will not make you nervous at all, but Mr. Jeff Weiss just joined the podcast today, so he wanted to say hello before you get started.
Good job. Long time to see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll jump in. I figured everybody here is going to know what the NPMS is, so I'm not going to bore you with that, but I'll touch a little bit on the NPMS submission requirement. So I look at the requirement as 3 different parts. We have the regulation, we have the standards that really detail exactly what you need to do, and they are referenced in the regulation, and then we also have the information collection. So at the top of the slide here, we have a couple links and information about the regulation itself. In short, all of the pipeline operators for gas transmission, LNG plants, hazardous liquid pipelines, and breakout tanks need to submit geospatial data to the NPMS once a year. And that is always representing the operations as of 12/31 of the previous year. So you'll hear me say a lot today about this is CY23 reporting. I didn't forget that it's a new year. I am just referencing that this is actually reporting what was operated and what the conditions looked like last year. your due dates are 2024. So for those gas transmission, those LNG plant operators, your due date is always by March 15th of every year. The hazardous liquid and the breakout tank folks, you're always by June 15th of every year. And if you work on annual reports, these are familiar dates. We have aligned with the annual report dates through the NPMS. So those are the regulations. I think the real meat, the real interesting stuff is actually in the referenced operator standards manual. So this is where we'll go through and actually outline the details of the requirements, the attributes, what's acceptable, the processes, the tools that are available to you, etc. So this is a critical resource I'll talk about more in a second. Next bullet here is another resources available to you. If you do annual reports, you know there are supplemental instructions for those. We have supplemental instructions for NPMS submissions as well. So this will just give you more examples and more of like an FAQ approach to saying, hey, you have this type of scenario on the ground. This is the best way to report that in your NPMS submittal. Next, I want to touch a little bit on that third piece of the NPMS submission requirement, the information collection. Every 3 years, we do have to request approval from the Office of Management and Budget, or what we call OMB, to collect certain pieces of information from the regulated industry. And that's really what defines what attributes are in the NPMS. So all of these changes that Monique had mentioned, these phased in changes, these are all changes not to regulations, they're changes to the information collection approved by OMB. The most recent changes were approved in March 31st of 2023. So in other words, you've got 3 years almost, a little less than 3 years, so I popped something else on you. No, I'm kidding. But you know, we have some time. We have some time. Trust me, we don't want to internally handle abrupt changes either. So we're always going to try to be reasonable in how we're implementing changes, and you'll know well before anything is approved by OMB. So OMB control number is here if you want to see any of the legal documents about that process. And the last item I wanted to mention here in the NPMS submission requirement is OSAVE. It's just the system that we've developed to help you submit all this information and to see this information and to do a lot of different NPMS submission activities. And I'll talk about that as a resource in a second here.
And Leigha, just to remind everybody again, you have 2 handouts on your control panel. One is those supplemental instructions, and then the other one is a PDF of all of the links. You'll see Leigha did a great job of getting all of the URLs up on for all of the pertaining information. All of that is downloadable in the PDF. We're also going to send that out again as a follow-up after the podcast is over. And I do want to mention too that I think Leigha is going to link this podcast a couple of places. We're also going to have it on our website, the recording of it, and we're going to put it on our YouTube channel. So, you know, if you have colleagues or coworkers that you think might benefit from this information, we're going to get you all of those links so that you can distribute that out.
All right. At this point, I'll jump into some of the NPMS, the resources that are available to help you prepare the most accurate NPMS submittal. We'll first point people to this section of our website. When you go to our homepage, there's a portal that's designated just for pipeline operators. You're different from all of our other users. All of our other users are coming here to learn about pipelines. You're here to come and really contribute the data that enables them to know what they need to know about what's on the ground. So the information for you is quite different. So go to the pipeline operator portal, and this is the top section. It's called Make a Pipeline Submission. I just want to point out a couple of the items on this homepage and explain to you what these resources are. The very first, why must I submit to the NPMS? This is self-explanatory. This is going to give you the regs. This is going to tell you when it was codified, all of that type of information. A nice high-level overview if you're interested in that. But next is the meat. That's the NPMS Operator Standards Manual. That's nobody makes an NPMS submittal or knows anything about the NPMS without using this manual. This is really outlining whatever OMB has approved and the tools and the processes that are in place for you to meet the requirements. Next, the NPMS operator submission supplemental instructions. Mentioned these a little bit earlier as well. This is just additional guidance and examples for how to comply with the requirements. I mentioned before, it's kind of like an FAQ approach. Rather than just outlining you must do A, B, and C, it tries to take a different approach that was really built over time based on all of the questions we were hearing from operators. And we've had so many conversations with probably 1,800 of you out there now over the years, and we listen and we hear the complications that you have with how do I report this type of change or this type of operation, and we've gathered all that information and tried to answer the biggest questions in this document, so it's definitely worth a check. Next, I'm going to point out that there are 3 separate sections here. We got pipeline submissions, LNG plant submissions, breakout tank submissions. These are great overviews, very high level, quick summaries of what that specific submission process is going to look like. Each one of them is going to have an overview of the submission process, basically I think 5-6 steps. You follow these steps, you're going to be okay. Each one also includes a summary of the required components. So the pieces that you're submitting, exactly what they are. This is where you'll find a lot of templates. I'll mention some of those templates in a minute. And then each of them also talks about OSAVE. I mentioned this for a quick second before. OSAVE is our operator submission and validation environment. This is where you do all your NPMS submission activities. Yes, of course, your individual GIS systems and all of the information you're collecting on the ground is the majority of your work that goes into creating a great NPMS submittal. But when it comes to reporting time, after you create your submittal and you have all your files ready, you go into OSAVE and it gives you a streamlined process to get that submitted to us in a standardized way to make sure that hopefully we're not missing anything and don't have to bug you about it afterwards. The templates, I do want to mention these templates. I'll mention them a few times today. Within each of the pipeline, LNG plant, and breakout tank sections, I believe it's within the, well, it's either the summary required components or the overview sections. There's going to be a number of templates that are available to download. We have shapefile and geodatabase templates for all of the data sets. These have all of the attribute requirements, required values, etc., already built into them. We also have Excel templates. If you are actually submitting separate GIS coordinates from your attributes, you can just use an Excel template that will still have all of those roles to build your attributes in the accurate way and make sure that they meet the standards. You can't not meet the standards when you use these templates. Next, we also have cover/transmittal letter templates. These, there's one out there for pipelines, but honestly, when you use OSAVE, it's all built in. So you don't have to use that template. But with LNG plant and breakout tank submissions, there is still a template to make sure that you're providing all certain contact information, the cover letter answers that we need to have answered by you, the questions we need to have answered by you, as well as provide the metadata components that we need to move forward with processing your submission. So instead of reading through the standards and making sure that you draft up something that includes all that information, just download the template. You'll have the answer, the questions all there for you. Last, I'll mention the abandonment certification templates. So those are for certain abandonments, and I'll mention this in a few minutes. I'd say the last bullet on this screenshot says future NPMS attribute standards, a revision summary. This, not so future anymore, at least some of it, our baseline foundational year is coming out at phase 0 right now. But there's still a lot of things to come in the future. So if you want to do some planning, you want to understand what's coming, go to the future NPMS attribute standards and revision summary. You want to know what you need to submit this year, go to the operator standards manual. This operator standards manual, the operator submission, supplemental instructions, and a lot of the information on all these web pages just published now, late 23, early 24. So it's already for your 2024 submission, but they'll all change again in a few months. You can go to the next slide.
So you want to impress your boss?
I'm in a few years. I'm sorry.
Yeah, a few years. Like, calm down. Calm down. Leigha, come on. Y'all don't move that quick. So if you want to impress your boss, right, go look at the future stuff and let them know, hey, let's do some planning. Let's start getting our ducks in a row. Like, you know, it's better to jump into all of this earlier rather than later. You definitely don't want to do anything, you know, the week before it's due, right? So you got some good resources for everybody to jump into and check out here, right?
Absolutely. Here I just touched a little bit on one specific resource. That's the OSAVE, the Operator Submission Validation Environment. I wanted to touch on a few things that are available here that maybe not everybody knows about. Number one, we do for pipeline submissions, we have this pre-validation tool. This has been updated for all the phase 0 changes. So if you have any concerns, use this pre-validation tool. It's actually in the very first image, the green with the white check mark there. If you go into OSAVE and you use that tool, you could run the same QC scripts that we run when you upload your submission and deny it or accept it. You could run the submission, those QC scripts on your own to check your attributes against our standards. Some other things that are available here, we streamline the process for submitting the metadata information, cover letter information, contact information for pipelines. You're just going to collect it in forms. You don't have to download templates and fill them out like you do with LMGs and breakout types. As well, when you're going through that pipeline submittal process, you can actually see a comparison between your annual report mileage and your NPMS mileage. Just kind of double check, make sure that you are submitting the same pipelines in both places. You can review previously submitted pipeline maps. We have tools that allow you to really summarize some of the data, pull some statistics out of the data. The idea here is you could come through and use these tools and it will help you identify, hey, here's a location that I know needs to change this year.
Yeah, your change detection, that's important.
Mm-hmm. We also have the ability to report attributes or submittal or segment removals from a mapping environment. So we understand not everybody has a GIS system. Most of the folks here probably do, but there's definitely some smaller shops out there who don't. So once they get some GIS system, into the NPMS, they use this mapping environment if they just need to change an attribute or maybe remove a segment sometimes, and they don't have to worry about building a whole new GIS file. And the last thing I'll mention is that you could come here for more than just uploading your submission. You could print out your receipts, validating exactly when you submitted your NPMS submission, when it was accepted. You can provide this information to inspectors when they're asking you about your NPMS submission requirements. And a quick tip, know before you go when it comes to OSAVE. There's a lot of pages of collecting information when you're uploading your data submittal. So if you go to the OSAVE user guide, you can see every one of those pages. Every question is going to be asked. You can have all your information available. So once you get to the application, it's just a plug and chug straight through the system.
Right on.
All right, so we'll jump into the actual NPMS information collection changes today. I know that's what a lot of people want to hear about. Mentioned this a little bit ago. This OMB approved this March 31st, 2023. It's been approved a couple of times, but it's taking some time to get it implemented. Not only because you guys need time to build the data and build the systems, we need time to build the systems ourselves. So we don't want to rush anything prematurely. So we decided to take this phase implementation approach. We have 3 different phases, well, 4 different phases actually, if you consider phase 0. Phase 0 is the only one that's going to be implemented this year. This is what we're calling the baseline year, the foundation of the information collection changes. And today I'm going to go into the detail about all of the changes that you need to submit this year. But in upcoming years, for example, in 2027, that's when you're going to do the 26 reporting. There's going to be a number of new pipeline attributes required at that point. There's some examples here. It's on a full list. Check this future operator submittals if you want a full list, but there is material, whether or not the pipeline is coded, the join method, information about whether or not the pipeline has inline inspection capabilities, class locations, gas, HCAs, MCAs. I know this is also where we're collecting additional LNG plant attributes. So if you're an LNG operator, look into phase 1. Phase 2 is not going to be submitted until your 2028 deadline. That is your reporting of your operations that occurred during 27. Here we're getting wall thickness, seam type, decade of install, and we're really jumping into the liquid HCAs. Could it affect HPAs, OPAs, CNWs, Eco USAs? Can I say them all that fast?
Yeah.
Eco USAs, drinking water USAs, the coastal USAs. So, as well as some other things about the assessment methods, the most recent assessment methods. Those are all going to come in 2028 when you're reporting for CY 2017 or 2027 in phase 2. And then phase 3 is the final phase. And this is actually aligned time-wise with phase 1. This was supposed to be about 7 years after the original approval of this part, which aligns with phase 1. And this is only spatial accuracy improvement. I'll talk a little bit about what the spatial accuracy requirements are, but go check those future standards again if you want to read more detail. There are going to be 2 standards, within 50 feet and within 100 feet. So within 50 feet, you have your gas transmission pipelines that are classes 2, 3, and 4, or they could be within an HCA or MCA. They could be assessed under the 192.710 requirement, or there could be certain buildings or sites within the potential impact radius. These are the pipelines where we have to have finer, detailed information to ensure public safety. So we appreciate getting these within 50 feet. And I know that you guys have the technology, you have the data. I'm confident that you guys can meet that requirement. Now, everything else falls within a 100-foot accuracy. This is all your other GT pipelines, your hazardous liquid pipelines, your LNG plants, and your breakout tank locations. So between 50 and 100 feet are the 2 standards that we're going to implement. As many of you know, the current standard is plus minus 500 feet. It's been around since about the late 90s. So it's about time that we start updating the standard to start matching the quality of data that we know you guys have, to make sure that our emergency responders are getting the best that they can as well.
So Leigha, that's a great point, right? A lot of people are already capturing all of this data. It's all very important data for people to be operating their pipelines safely. And so really, it's just really about grabbing all that data that you're already capturing, that you're probably already organizing in your PODS data model, and then submitting that as additional information in your NPMS than what you maybe submitted before, right? So this is not a huge ask for a lot of people. It's just, it's actually submitting that data that they're already capturing, correct?
Absolutely. We've talked to so many of you, so many operators over the years, and we understand you guys have a wealth of quality information that you're working with to ensure that you have safe operations every day. What we're taking is a wee little piece. So it's a little bit of a bigger piece, not that much bigger, but it's going to be great to transfer some of that benefit from how, what you guys gain in operations through your mapping systems, and transfer some of that to our stakeholders and our emergency responders as well.
And it's really important, with that digital twin, which is what everybody's going for here, right? To be able to see what not only, and because Jeff's on, I'm going to call him out, but he says this all the time. It's not, you can't just know what's in your pipeline. It's just as important to know what's around your pipeline, right? So you have to have a spatial understanding of where everything is so that you can make good decisions for your operations and good business decisions as well. So this is great. This is wonderful that you're able to show everybody what to be looking forward to in the future as well, so they can get their ducks in a row.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, so we'll move on, you think, to phase 0 changes and talk a little bit deeper into the pipeline diameter attributes. And we have again, all of this information we're going to make available to everybody. If you want to do screenshots, that's fine, but we're going to also have all of this recorded and sent over to you.
Absolutely. And this is where we're going to get into the meat of what you need to know for 2024. Your deadline's coming up, may it be March or may it be June. 3 major changes I mentioned earlier. This is the first one, the pipeline diameter attribute. This has been optional for so many years. Well, I'll tell you, a good number of operators have been submitting this information for a very long time, upwards of 70%, give or take, every year. And so we are now going to require that attribute, which means we're also going to start validating the quality of the data that's coming in. Honestly, in the past, if you submitted an outer diameter on an optional attribute, we may not have been able to utilize the resources to push back on an optional piece of information. We were accepting it. So now it's required. We're going to be checking it. It's going to have to match the standards in order to come in. And the standards state that this needs to be the nominal pipe size, the NPS. You guys probably know a lot more about this than I do. But we do have the table here with a number of fields. This is a very long table, so we just kind of split it into two. But in the dark blue columns, you're going to see all of the NPS values that we have the NPMS system set up to accept. This means that when you go into OSAVE and you run your pre-script to check your attributes, it's going to make sure that you only have these values available. We have a couple other fields here that talk about the kind of the description of how you normally describe that NPS value. And then we have what the actual outer diameter would be for that NPS value. And then we have the annual report group. If you are one of those who do the NPMS submission and the annual report submission, these are the diameter groups that you're used to with the annual reporting. So if you're CY22, now those are all of the submissions that were received during 2023. Your CY22 submission, if you already had NPS values included in there, you have no other changes going on, nothing's been abandoned, everything is still accurate as of 12/31/2023, you can do a no change submittal, that's fine. We're still accepting those this year for pipelines. However, if you do not have diameter attributes voluntarily submitted in the past, these next three bullets are going to pertain to you. You cannot submit a notification of no changes for CY23 reporting, of course. This means if you choose to submit changes through an OSAVE environment, like through the map where you just maybe remove some segments or change some attributes, it's not going to allow you to actually submit all that effort unless you also enter all of the NPS values for the diameter field for all of your pipelines. So be aware of that. As well, when you're making a data submission, you can't submit an addition. You're going to have to submit a full replacement data submission. And we already talked about the acceptable values over here. And I'll point out two quick tips here. I mentioned the submission templates earlier. We have Excel attribute templates, we have shapefile, file geodatabase, GIS data templates. They all have these values built into them. So when in doubt, go ahead and use those and you'll see all these acceptable NPMS values. And the OSAVE pre-validation tool, definitely use that. It will save you some surprises when you get to the actual upload process. It will return a report to you telling you which attribute field has issues, how many records have those issues, etc. But I also want to mention at the bottom here, if you're a company, you believe you have a NPS value that's missing from our list, reach out to us. Send an email to npms@dot.gov. Give us some information about that standard. We built this list off of a number of available standards in industry, but if you happen to have one that's a little bit different, we definitely want to hear from you.
Awesome. All right, here we go. That's the 10% of everybody that's on the call that have the breakout tanks. Y'all pay attention.
Yes. Welcome to the NPMS breakout tank operators. For so many years.
Welcome. We've missed you. We wanted you here much, but now you're here. And we're so excited.
Exactly. So for so many years, we have been collecting breakout tank submission data, but it has not gone through the rigors of the typical pipeline data submissions. We don't do the change detection. We're not tracking how pipelines are divested, acquired. We're not validating all of the information as accurate. There's a standard to be met, and then we'll accept it because it's better than nothing, to be honest. You know, it's one of those crap in, crap out type of situation. We were happy to get that information from the operators who voluntarily provided it, but it was never a complete picture. So this is a huge improvement to finally have a complete, validated, tracked data set of all of the breakout tanks across the US. So like diameter, previously optional, now it's required, which means it's also validated to the standards. One of the things that's unique to breakout tank submissions for CY23, you cannot do a notification of no changes this year. since this is the baseline foundation year of true requirements, every submission has to come in so it can be validated against the standards, and we'll be building from this point forward. So if you're one of those companies where your breakout tanks really aren't changing very much, this is your 1 year to get it in. You'll probably be doing no changes from now forward. Now you can see the details about what attributes are required on breakout tanks. That is Appendix A3 in the current operator standards, the January 2024 version. I have a little quick list of it over to the right side as well. We really did align the old original breakout tank attributes from the late 90s, early 2000s to match what the pipeline attributes are. So they're more familiar now, the more familiar names. They're also aligned with everything that we have approved in the future for pipelines. So this isn't going to change again in 2 years, like pipelines are going to change again in 2 years. But you got your operator ID and your operator name. You guys know this stuff. Your tank ID, kind of like a P-line ID or LNG ID, something unique to define that tank. Your facility name, we know there will be a number of tanks within a certain facility, a name for that facility so we can communicate with you about everything within that facility much easier. Tank size, the commodity, a little bit different from pipelines. We allow you to do commodity 1 or primary commodity 2, and commodity 3. It's just what are the up to 3 commodities that could be stored in that tank at any given time during the reporting year. A lot of operators may only have a primary commodity. 2 and 3 are optional if it applies to your tanks. Then we have your FRP sequence number, your facility response plan. This is an important number. You can contact PHMSA to get this information from your facility response plan, which has been approved by PHMSA. And then we have the typical attributes that come with all of our submissions that really help us process everything. The status of the tank, the quality of the tank, and the revision code of the tank, what kind of change has occurred. So we just have some of the acceptable values listed here real quick. You can read more about them in the future standards, actually the current standards. These are current required for 2024. But I'll go through real quick. The status one is a change that you may not be familiar with yet. These are the changes that are to come on pipelines, but we're implementing them now on breakout tanks, so we don't have to change it up on you again in 2 years. We have AF. AF stands for active and filled. We have AU. This is still active, but it's unfilled. And then we have PA. This is permanently abandoned. So we're moving away from a number of the confusing terms that were not properly defined in the regulations or anything. This idle, retired, it was a little unclear to folks and caused a lot of confusion. It's active or it's permanently abandoned right now. That's how the regs are right now. So that's how we're going to be aligning the status code.
And Leigha, I'm gonna pick on Jackie real quick because I know she's on the call. Jackie, we need to make sure that that Pod 7 and the current model has all of these attribute field names aligned as well. I bet they already are, but y'all know I know very little about the actual ins and outs of it. But we're gonna make sure that that this version of Pods has all of these attribute field names aligned to what you guys are putting out as well.
Absolutely. No, that's great. Any way to help streamline this for the operators, better for them, better for us. Always going to be. So just some tips. Again, utilize those templates. They're there. Utilize them. If you are one of those operators who has been voluntarily submitting your breakout tank information, say, but my information doesn't need to change. Go ahead, request a copy of that from us by sending us an email. You can load it into the template, and your NPMS submittal process for breakout tanks this year would be very quick and easy. And I did mention no notifications of no changes for CY23 or breakout tanks. We need to build that new foundation year, and we'll move forward from this point.
Awesome. Okay. So, and then of course, you guys have a ton of templates so that nobody's going to miss any information there. So, all right, let's talk about abandonments.
All right, so the last major phase 0 change are abandonments. So previously, these were optional unless they actually crossed a commercially navigable waterway, which is called CNW, or they ran offshore. However, when operators were telling us in the past that they were removing a pipeline from their submittal due to abandonment, we were actually keeping it and keeping it in our database in an abandoned status. It's separated from your operator ID. It's no longer, you know, when the public sees it and they click on it, they don't get your name and number anymore. They're just seeing that it is a previously abandoned pipeline, and roughly they'll see the year that it was abandoned. Now we're actually going to require all of those to be included in your submittals, your pipeline, your LNG, your breakout tank, of course. So when must you include a abandonment in your submittal? Well, first, when you include abandonment in your submittal, it means you include the plant points, the breakout tank points, or the pipeline segment, but you select a status code attribute of permanently abandoned. You will do that when the facility was previously operated as gas transmission, hazardous liquid, LNG plant, or breakout tank. Goes without saying, but if that was previously operated as gas gathering, you're not going to submit it as abandoned to the NPMS at this time. As well, it has to be abandoned during the reporting year. So in 2024, if it wasn't abandoned during 23, you do not include it in your submittal. Some of the
Say
things
that again, Leigha, because
yes.
I mean, this is a huge thing. If it happened in the reporting year, then you report it. You guys don't want everything since Jesus was making cabinets, right? No. You want when it
No,
happens, right? Okay.
yeah,
Good.
no, we don't. We're really collecting the change of this year, the operations as of this year. So no retroactive finding all the abandonment data from the archives and sending it in. We're just going to start with what did you abandon during 2023, and then we'll move
As
forward.
your
That's one of the
foundation
things
year.
that's
Yeah.
not changing. Yep, the
Okay.
foundational year. We're going to build up from here.
Great.
Some things that do not change. The abandonment is still permanent. I know, learned over the years that talking with different state regulators, talking with different operators, not everybody seems to have their own internal definition of abandonment that matches exactly the federal term, the federal definition, which really hinges on the word permanent. So when you're doing your NPMS submittal, consider the federal definition. Consider only submitting what is permanently abandoned. If you're just temporarily not using it, you might use it in the future, you might sell it in the future. This is still an active line. It might be unfilled, but it's still an active line. So that has not changed. It has to be a permanent removal of service to be abandoned for the NPMS. Something else that has not changed, always report an abandonment in the year is permanently abandoned. This has always been the case. When you go onto the page that outlines your submittal process, one of the steps there is to check your previously submitted abandoned lines or abandoned data. Make sure you don't resubmit that again. That's going to cause a problem in the NPMS submittal. Analyst is going to stop and contact you. Is there another abandoned facility in this location? Or did you accidentally report something that was abandoned multiple years ago? So that concept's not new either. The last thing I'll mention, oh, go ahead.
Leigha, I was just going to say another one that kind of goes without saying, but we're going to say it anyway, is a removal is not an abandonment.
Correct.
Make sure
For the NPMS. Correct. If you have physically removed it from the ground, you would just remove it from your submission in your OSAVE notes. You would state this submission, this pipeline is not being resubmitted this year. We physically removed it from the ground. That's different from abandoning in place. That's true. It's a good point. We're looking for those in place abandonments. If it's not in the ground, we don't want to imply to our stakeholders that it is.
Right. And that's a great point too, Leigha. Like over communicate, right? Put as many notes as you're not going to get dinged if you put a bunch of notes into your submittal and your OSAVE, right? Like add as much information as you can. The more information that people give you guys, right, the less chance they're going to get a strongly worded email from y'all, right?
Yes, absolutely. Because we will exhaust every piece of information you provided before we put everything on hold and draft up that email that you receive. So if you have explained it to us, I know we have a lot of great operators that do this. They submit supplemental shape files that identify the segments that they intentionally removed, and we can validate that against our change detection results as we're going through the submission processing. So there's a lot of different ways and opportunities to send that supplemental information that just helps us not bother you again and get through your submission quickly so it's published quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to mention the very last thing here that's not changing 29 CFR 192.3 and 195.2. These are those abandonment certification or abandonment reporting requirements. They haven't changed. So you don't have to submit those additional templates for every single abandoned line. It's still only those that cross ACNW or run offshore.
Awesome. And again, all of these links for everything are going to be in the handouts, and we're going to send these links out to everybody again. So, you know, Leigha, you guys are MFA now, right? Just like everybody else, right? I mean, I don't know any. Yeah, it's all in the cloud. I don't know anybody. I don't know any operator or any service company that's not using multi-factor authentication, especially with what's been happening recently with you know, cyber attacks and the threat of that, and you know, pipeliners have always been at the forefront of ensuring safety and you know, homeland security of these assets. And so it's great that you guys are using MFA now too.
Absolutely. Now, not just on our databases and our internal IT systems, but now on our applications that you may access, your contractors may access, all the federal government employees, the 12,000 plus users of our PHMSA system, they all have to use MFA to get into the system now. Why I really included this slide here is because this is really important for you for your submittal deadline. Your submittal deadlines are coming up in March and June, and they don't change because you didn't prepare your MFA account. So the big important thing I wanted to say is we did implement MFA. It's on every NPMS application, which includes OSAVE, PHMSA, everything else. What does this mean for you? You don't have a username and password anymore. It's gone. You can't reset it. You can't share it. You have to log in with what's called the login.gov MFA solution. This is a government-wide solution, so if you're used to using other government systems, you may have seen login.gov, you may already be set up and ready to go. But if you aren't, you've received a number of emails from us, if you had a PHMSA account in the past, that outline exactly how to set up that account with login.gov. And the important factor that it must be set up with the email that is your business email that you used on your application for your original PHMSA or NPMS account. And one of the really big pieces here is that you can no longer share that NPMS account with your contractors if you are hiring a contractor to make your NPMS submittal on your behalf. This is the bread and butter of MFA. The point is that it knows exactly who you are. Nobody's sharing accounts. So we do have a new solution in place for you. It's called sponsoring NPMS access. So if you are a government official, you are a pipeline operator, all you have to do is be a legitimate NPMS account holder. You can sponsor NPMS access for your contractors. There is a link here that says /sponsor NPMS access. You go to that form and it will explain to you the process, who is a legitimate contractor for this opportunity, what your responsibilities are, what information you have to provide, etc. But essentially, you're getting a temporary contractor NPMS account for your contract staff to use in order to meet the requirements that you have contracted them to meet. But you can no longer just say, here's my username and password, and I'll just reset it later. Those days are gone. It's really important to protect your data, to make sure that nobody's trying to submit data over top of your data that you don't know about. So this MFA is a really big advancement in protecting everything that you've been submitting to us all these years. And the little image over on the right-hand side, this will become familiar to you. This is the new NPMS login page for every single application, and highlighted the option that's login.gov. You can ignore the My Access option, and it only applies to DOT employees. Every one of you are going to use the login.gov option here.
So Leigha, whenever they get off of this podcast, before they go eat lunch, before I feed Lucky, you go get them these links and make sure that you have your access, because you know, if you have or if you're a service provider that's submitting for multiple operators, you want to make sure you get in these applications for the sponsor access earlier rather than later, right? You don't want to wait until the week before your submittals due and then try to log in and you're like, oh, I don't have the credentials, I don't want it. Like, you know, do it now. That way, if you do have any issues, right, there's a lot more time where you and your staff can help everybody out, making sure that they get access and being able to submit on time, right? Because again, just like Leigha said, you're not going to get, the deadline's not moving. You still have to submit on the regular deadlines. So make sure that you get your MFA ready to rock and roll beforehand. Prepare now. Okay.
Absolutely.
See,
And if you
I
didn't
fussed at
receive
them.
that
You
email in
didn't fuss at them.
September, we started sending those emails in September to get people ready. You're probably sick of hearing from us by now. We sent so many mass emails out, and you're going to get a couple more.
Oh, well.
Just a lot going on lately. But so
Yeah.
yes, follow the instructions. Set up your login.gov account. Test it. Make sure it works. OSAVE right now is offline. We're getting all the enhancements built into it to make phase 0 seamless. So right now it's going to open up. It's expected to be next Tuesday, January 24th. So you can test there, but if you want to test it today before you go feed Lucky, go ahead to PMA. If you can sign into PMA with your account, you're good. You're going to be able to get into OSAVE and go to that sponsor access request form. If you have a contractor that's going to be submitting on your behalf, get them in the system, see what information you need to gather from them before you submit the request, and get that sent to us ASAP.
Awesome. Now, I know we're running a little bit late on time, so we have a couple of slides after this one that just have, you know, Leigha's standard tips, 8 tips and tricks about submitting your NPMS. So we're going to make that available to everybody too. So, but before, you know, we close up, Leigha, you wanted to talk a little bit about omit implant and instrumentation. This
Absolutely.
is don't go overboard, right? That's the thing, right?
That's all we need to say, really. We appreciate the level of accuracy in a number, not all operators, but certain operators, the way they organize their data. They have so many small segments, and they're submitting instrumentation. They're submitting these little pieces that are just not compatible with the real goal of the NPMS. And over the years, we realized the more of those little segments, those little pieces of instrumentation that are submitted, the more changes we see year after year, the more problems in our changes section, the more times we have to stop and call you. And if you're one of those people, you know it, because we've talked to you a lot about it. So we're really giving this new guidance here that says, hey, please just omit the implant and small instrumentation, the small itty bitty segments. One example is that you could be omitting the segments that are associated with the site in your PODS model, if that's the way you've implemented it. Some other examples of these itty bitty segments, these valves, receivers. I won't read everything on the screen here, but I'll jump over to segments less than 0.00005 miles. Surprisingly, we do receive a lot of these. Guess what? We erase them. They do not go into the database. So you don't have to bother with trying to build those into your system.
Yeah.
Of course, for so many years, we've been saying if it's on your annual report, it must be in your NPMS submittal. Not saying that that's not true, but there may be little segments here. Maybe you chose to submit the length of a blow off into your annual report because that's how you chose to classify it. You chose to make it a gas transmission pipeline and treat it as such. Don't submit it to the NPMS. And the small length of those pieces and the way they're easily identifiable, like these little images on the side, those yellow pipes, this is that type of small segmentation that's just not conducive with the goal of the NPMS and our users and why they use it. So we do have that 5% mileage discrepancy built in when we compare the NPMS to your annual report. We don't think this is going to cause any problems. If you have any concern with, using your best judgment, contact us. We're happy to talk to you. The goal here is just to make things easier for you and to make things easier for the NPMS staff so we can all focus on those larger gas transmission hazardous liquid pipes that our stakeholders really need to see.
Yeah, that's a great point. So yeah, if you guys want some more information on all of Leigha's tips, we did a podcast on this that very in depth, and so I'm going to skip through this because this is going to be on our channel as well. And Leigha, if you don't mind closing us out with the new LNG and breakout tank submission upload process.
Yes, just very quick. Previously, there was an open FTP site. It is gone. You will not see if you have a bookmark, it goes to a dead end. So you will be logging into OSAVE for both your breakout tank and your LNG submittals. And similar to the previous process, you're going to compile all of the required components into like a zip file. You're going to go through a short upload process inside of OSAVE. So it's now behind the authentication wall where you have to use MFA to gain access to that ability. That's all.
Yep. Awesome. So we got a bunch of stuff happening that's coming out with pods. You know, of course, we're available for all of this information, or if you want to get involved with one of our working groups as well. Next month, we have 2 standalone models coming out. Well, sorry, 1 standalone model and then a module on Pod 7. One is the Golden Build for offshore that BP donated. Thank you so much for doing that. And then the other one is the regulatory and integrity task module, which, Leigha, they went through all of the code and went and grabbed every single piece of data and information. Now, in all of it was exhaustive, right? They went through the entire annual report and everything in NPMS submittal. So this thing is an exhaustive list. And so if you want to know why you performed a dig or why you ran a pig, you're going to have all of that historical data now in your PODS data model, which is awesome, right? We're going to be a bunch of different places. Hopefully Leigha's going to be able to come join us at the Spring Forum and the URGIS Convention as well in April. But, you know, if you guys are going to be attending any of these things, please come out and say hello. We're going to be doing our first international PODS mini forum this year as well. So stay tuned for more information on that. And then, of course, Leigha, again, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate all the information that you give to us and our community. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to Leigha, or you can email the npms@dot.gov as well if you have any additional questions. So again, thank you so much. We really appreciate our partnership, and I appreciate our friendship as well, Leigha, and you coming out and giving us all this great information. So thanks again.
Thank you, and type up those questions. We'll get to them and we'll get all that information back to you guys. Sorry, it's a little long-winded there. A lot of stuff to share.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great day.
Bye-bye.